So, Borderlands 3 is now fast approaching, and truthfully, I'm not sure if I've ever seen a major game company CEO have as many meltdowns on social media as Randy Pitchford. Say what you want about Todd Howard and Fallout 76, he's not on Twitter freaking out every time the community raises concerns or an article gets dropped. In fact, if anything, he might be too quiet. But still, Andrew Wilson, the CEO from EA, doesn't have a meltdown every other day. Terry Donovan, CEO of Rockstar Games, isn't losing his shit every single time people complain about Red Dead 2 online. And the list goes on and on. Randy Pitchford is by far and away the most confusingly vocal industry professional right now on the scene, especially regarding topics that, again, to be totally honest, make no fucking sense. The new gameplay segment and trailer for Borderlands 3 recently made a debut, and frankly, I like a lot of what I saw. The gameplay segment itself was not all that impressive, most of it seemed exactly like Borderlands 2, and if I was told it was just a DLC for Borderlands 2, I don't think I'd bat an eyelash. But the more cinematic trailer that came out alongside it got me a lot more interested by showing actual new mechanics. All in all, I think after the reveal, considering everything I've seen so far, I am tentatively excited. Seems like it has true potential. But there are a lot of different ingredients nowadays when it comes to large AAA games. Very soon after the reveal, this article hit the scene from Game Informer. The article revolves around some confusion brought on by Randy Pitchford himself, specifically claiming that the game won't have microtransactions, but immediately before that saying that they will be selling cosmetics, aka microtransactions. Here are a few different quotes. We're selling cosmetic items, but we're not going to nickel and dime players, followed by DLC will come down the line, but the game won't have anything excessive. Now, if the game follows the previously established framework laid out by Borderlands 2, I don't see any sort of major issue. It's funny to think that Bethesda selling horse armor microtransactions even just 12 years ago was met with widespread hatred, but now the mainstream sale of cosmetic items for much higher price tags than the $2.50 for the horse armor is defended, even praised. It's just an odd thing to contemplate. Side note, at what point do we stop calling them microtransactions? When is it just transactions? I see that in the comments a lot. Skins in games sell for $20, $30, $40 sometimes. Mounts or armor packs or whatever it may be get sold for the exact same price as multiple DLC packs or a season pass, or even a full game itself. So at what point exactly do we stop pretending they are micro and call a spade a spade? Regardless, the article concludes by expressing Gearbox's commitment to keep loot boxes out of Borderlands 3 and highlights their claim that they will be listening to what the fans desire. All in all, it's a very short article that really is nothing more than a clarification. The game is going to have microtransactions. They are claimed at this stage to be cosmetic only, but Randy Pitchford specifically said no microtransactions, which is very confusing, so they wrote a short piece to clarify, get some clicks, and do their job. Well, Randy got mad. He fired back with this little number. Come on, guys, shitty clickbait headline. Literally seconds before I said that, I made it very clear we're going to do more cosmetic stuff like we did in Borderlands 2. You know I was talking about premium currency and loot boxes kind of stuff not being in our game. And beyond that, he sends out this behemoth of a thread, which read to me like a sort of pseudo ass-kiss apology victim play. It's hard to explain, something like that. He basically asks for help from Game Informer to get gamers to treat Borderlands 3 fairly, and says his door is always open to the editor-in-chief of Game Informer, who he had a little spat with on another thread. It comes across like bewilderment, as if they are part of the same circle jerk session, and Randy is annoyed because Andy didn't help make sure to spread the right angle of coverage and build up the all-too-real industrial hype machine in advance of Borderlands 3. Anyways, here's where we get into the real discussion. By every single definition, the term microtransactions includes cosmetic purchases. It always has since birth. The concept includes skins, costumes, whatever it may be, and nowhere in the history of gaming has it been accurate to say the game has no microtransactions, we are just selling cosmetics. Randy Pitchford knows this. How could he possibly not know this? So his terminology could either be an actual misspoken line, which I find exceedingly hard to believe, or it is a PR spin. Rather, was a PR spin, and then Game Informer turned a spotlight at it and pissed Randy off. It doesn't matter how you say it. The game can be beaten without spending extra money. We're just selling cosmetics. Still microtransactions. It's not pay to win. Still microtransactions. There's no premium currency or loot boxes. Still goddamn, like, you get the point, right? It's all microtransactions. The entire topic could be condensed into one single sentence. We have microtransactions, but they are cosmetic only, and we will avoid loot boxes. There, boom, done deal. But that's not what he said, and there is a reason for that. Look at a game like Anthem, cosmetic-only microtransactions, no loot boxes, but gamers were still not happy about it. Think about why Activision Blizzard held off on their microtransaction store and sales until well after the initial review cycle had passed for Black Ops 4, and most importantly, harken back to Fallout 76, where Pete Hines said the following: "That's important, and to say the Atomic Shop is cosmetic stuff, to make sure folks understand, look, there's a line. There are people who have crossed it, but we're going to stay on the right side of it in terms of the things you can spend money on and how this stuff works and what you're getting for your $60. Fallout 76 confirmed with absolute certainty that there would only be cosmetic microtransactions. Now, there are repair kits which impact gameplay. Randy Pitchford says things like, "We're selling cosmetic items, but we're not going to nickel and dime players." Sound familiar? The truth is that there is a supremely negative stigma right now around certain industry terms. Loot boxes is probably the worst one of all of them, but microtransactions is pretty damn close to it. Players don't want to pay $60 and then get sold content that should already be in the fucking game. So Randy Pitchford, Gearbox, hell, most of the industry right now, are trying to distance themselves from the term while maintaining the practice. To go further, now that Borderlands 3 can be pre-ordered, guess what's included in their flashy money-grubbing pre-order bundles? XP boosts, loot drop boosts, and a myriad of other gimmicks or items. Not gonna lie, the diamond loot chest thing, the real-world crate or whatever, sounds pretty cool, but in essence, you can pay more for a pre-order super deluxe bundle and get access to loot and experience boost mods. This starts to feel awkward considering we're selling cosmetics, but we're not going to nickel and dime players. Sure you are. Now, it could end up that you simply get earlier access to mods that everyone else eventually unlocks. That's what Division 2 did with stash capacity. They may be temporary as well, permanent, I don't know, no one knows at this point, but that's an entire new set of issues because they are selling massively overpriced super editions and not making it clear what those editions even contain or how the items will operate. There are a lot of things to consider about Borderlands 3. As previously expressed by Randy Pitchford himself, the decision to transition over to the Epic Store as a 6-month exclusive was made by Take-Two Interactive, the publisher in control of Gearbox. Randy was very vocal in his statement that he shouldn't be blamed because it was not up to him. But what else then might fall under the umbrella of Take-Two Interactive? After all, it is run by Strauss Zelnick, a man notably saying that they are under-monetizing users through specifically microtransactions in GTA 5 Online. Red Dead Redemption 2 Online is also a property under Take-Two, and there we can see horrific microtransaction practices. Gold is severely overpriced, the original system was blatantly pay-to-win, there were remnants of that pay-to-win system for weeks, perhaps even still, that prompted players to go buy gold for instant access, but then when you got back, the item was no longer available, and it's a giant slap in the face for players that wish to experience the world unencumbered by invasive monetization. Randy Pitchford stated that there will not be any sort of premium currency, which is a great sign, and that there are no loot boxes, which again sounds pretty good on paper, but there are more ways to nickel and dime players. On top of that, we've now seen far too many examples of companies just flat out going back on their word. Let's zero in on Randy Pitchford here. Another well-known project he has controlled in the past was Aliens Colonial Marines. The game was, at the time, referred to as one of the biggest flops in history, and was so deceptive in its marketing and development, a class action lawsuit was opened by Edelson LLC. The game looked completely different at show panels and conferences, and released as a pale shadow of what was promised. So much so that it actually got the legal ball rolling, which is an exceptionally difficult thing to do. It takes a grade A fuck-up to get that done in the modern games industry. Gearbox, to which Randy is the CEO, requested to be dropped from the suit, claiming that Sega were the publishers and therefore responsible. But Sega's position evolved when an email surfaced where brand manager Matt Iyer said the following: "I spoke face-to-face with Gibson about their persistent panel leaking. Effectively, it's Randy doing whatever the fuck he likes. Apparently he did it twice in Borderlands 2 also. Again, against all plans and despite the fact they asked him not to." Since the largest issue here is false advertising and the expectations did not match reality, the fact that Randy Pitchford had allegedly leaked details that helped build false expectations because he did whatever the fuck he likes is a bit of a revelation. Randy Pitchford also defended the quality of Aliens Colonial Marines graphics, saying it was great in an interview with Eurogamer, which is about as disingenuous as one could possibly be, and goes on to admit that there were marketing tricks used, and then claims he is not responsible for any marketing, a statement that is in roundabout contradiction with what the Sega brand manager claimed. To tie it back into Borderlands 3 and the confusing claim of no microtransactions when there are blatantly and beyond any dispute whatsoever microtransactions in the game, there are a few different scenarios. The first is that Randy Pitchford is not in fact in control of the entire project, which means Take-Two Interactive, a notoriously microtransaction obsessed publisher, has influence. That's entirely possible. The second scenario is that Randy Pitchford really does do whatever the hell he wants, which might paint a different picture in terms of the Epic Store exclusivity, which he portrayed as not being up to him, and also would establish a history of false promises on his part when considering Aliens Colonial Marines. And the third scenario is that it was all just a convoluted PR spin to try and distance themselves from the term microtransaction without altering the practice. To be totally upfront, I like a lot of what I see in Borderlands 3 so far, especially the vehicles and certain abilities. If the monetization stays true to Borderlands 2, it would be a lateral progression, and very unlikely to net any sort of backlash or outrage. But dancing around a term that he knows full and fucking well pertains to the game, pretending he meant it in a different way and was not trying to spin something, is disingenuous and only serves to conjure up images from his own past and other previous releases, which is anything but reassuring. Furthermore, consistently having micro meltdowns on Twitter every time he is at odds with anything or anyone in the industry is, well, it's not something that makes me super pumped about the future news cycle surrounding Borderlands 3. It might be an amazing game. In fact, I sincerely hope it ends up that way. But the biggest problem with Borderlands 3 right now is Randy Pitchford. That's it though. He blocks creators on Twitter sometimes when they make him mad. To be fair, so do I. So does probably everyone. It's not even that big of a deal by itself. But if he blocks me, I'll know that he watched this video and it triggered him. So that's kind of funny. I'll keep you guys posted. But that really is it. If you want to support the channel, check out the links down below. We have merch, communities, etc. But I'll cut it there and stop rambling. Thank you all for watching and have a nice night.